You know, we may know a lot about history, but all we know about the future is speculation. Our opening speaker, futurist Jack Aldridge, has spent a lot of time looking at all the things going on in the world. And he's been able to connect the dots and look at the disparate events. And he has identified 10 trends that will transform us, our lives, and our work. These are the trends that will define our world of tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jack Aldridge.
My message is very simple. The future is here today. I want to reiterate that. The future is here today. This is a theme I've been talking about for some time. In fact, a few years ago, I wrote a book called Jump the Curve. And as I was writing it, I came across a wonderful quote from Albert Einstein. And he said decades ago, he said to scientists, he said, if you can't explain what you're working on to a 6-year-old child, you're a fraud. And I've always liked that quote, and it just so happens I'm blessed with a son. This is a picture of my son, Sean, and when the book came out, he was only 6 years old, and I wanted to see if he could understand what I meant by jump the curve, because I need you to grasp this concept. And I didn't know how to do this, but one day it occurred to me. He came to me very excited. He had lost his first tooth. And in the West, we have a tradition of the tooth fairy. And so I said to my son, imagine this evening that the tooth fairy comes and presents you 2 different options for your teeth. And it is a fact that all babies have 20 teeth. Option number 1, the tooth fairy is going to give you $1 per tooth. The second option is the tooth fairy is going to give you a penny for your first tooth, 2 for your second, 4 for your third, and it's going to double 20 times. Which one are you going to take? Without batting an eye, my son said, I'm going to take the $1. That would be $20 in total. I said, fair enough, but do you actually know what your 20th tooth would be worth under the other option? He said, no. And I said, as your father, I'm about to tell you. It would be worth $5,242.88. His eyes got quite big, and I said, that's what you missed by not knowing how to jump the curve. And I said, look, son, let's plot that penny out doubling. Early on, the doubling doesn't look significant. 1 penny, 2, 4. But after just 20 doublings, it shoots up to over $5,000. That's why he needed to know how to jump the curve. The reason you need to know how to jump the curve is because there are now 10 technological forces that are doubling, anywhere from every 4 to 24 months. It is computer processing power. It is data storage. It is internet bandwidth. It's the sequencing of the human genome. Advances in biotechnology, nanotechnology, robotics, 3D printing, sensor technology, and data. All of these trends aren't just increasing linearly, they're increasing exponentially. And this is why we have to jump the curve. Another point I want to make from this point forward, every technology I tell you about today isn't off in the future, it is here today. Your challenge is to understand how, like the doubling of that penny, each and every one of these trends is only going to get exponentially more powerful. And so with that, let me begin walking you through some trends that are already here today. How many of you know what this technology is that I have up? It is Google Glass. These are glasses that you wear, and it is as though the computer screen is right in front of you. Let me show you where we were at the end of 2013 with this technology.
As Kading performed surgery on the east side of Columbus, a colleague collaborated from his office across town. And on Ohio State's main campus, a group of medical students saw this historic event from a completely different perspective.
So we are already using the technology to transform how we teach medical students about surgery if you saw he could consult with an expert on the other side of town or on the other side of the world. My message to you is this trend is only going to get exponentially more powerful. So how are you going to be communicating with your clients and customers in the not too distant future? And what might you be able to do with a technology like this? And I'm here to tell you, this technology is coming fast. Just last week in Australia, a bank unveiled a new banking app for Google Glass that allows customers to access their bank account and potentially pay for things with their Google Glass. But of course, wearable technology is not going to stop there. A few months ago, some of you might have seen that Google has recently introduced a smart contact lens. This is a contact that you wear, and if you're a diabetic, it monitors your glucose level. So how we treat diabetes in the not too distant future as a result of this technology could transform how we think about that disease. But even there, it's not going to stop, because the future of wearable technology isn't just on the outside of us. 3 months ago, Intel announced the development of a new computer chip designed to go inside us. And the reason it is designed to go inside us is to begin detecting disease before it ever occurs in the first place. So what does that mean for your industry when we're preventing diseases from ever occurring in the first place? This future is coming sooner than most people realize. Technology trend number 2, 3D manufacturing. This is the physical printing out of objects. In Canada, late last year, they printed all of the exterior components of an automobile. Just last week, China announced the development of a massive 3D printer, and their whole intention is to begin printing aircraft engine parts by 2017. So just 4 years. But think about what that means to the world of manufacturing. Instead of manufacturing things in a specific location and then putting them on a ship and transporting them across the Pacific Ocean and putting them on trucks to deliver to people's countries, in the not too distant future, manufacturing is going to take place right in your local community. And this is going to have a profound implication on the global economy, on the global supply chain, and on economies in general. Here's another way I want you to think about the future, is if something doubles just 10 times, it's not 10 times as big, it's 1,000 times as big. I want to repeat that. If something doubles 10 times, it's not 10 times as big, it is 1,000 times as big. And I am going to walk you through some 1,000-fold increases that we know are coming our way. But before I do that, I just want to walk back 6 years. 6 years ago, how many of us knew what apps were? Very few of us did. But today, they're revolutionizing our world. How many of you know what this app is? It's Mobile Life Insurance Monitor. People can already today find out the price of your life insurance. But of course, it's not going to end there. Let me show you where we were just a couple of months ago in the healthcare realm.
Watch what he does with his cell phone.
And we'll just pop this iPhone into it like that.
He shows how simply his modified iPhone produces a cardiogram for a patient.
So you just put your fingers on it. There you go. And in a second,
Wow.
In the second, then it stabilizes. There it is.
The device was approved by the FDA in December and is now sold to physicians for $199.
$199. At least in the West today, that machine to test your heart costs $30,000. And yet here's one low-cost device that could revolutionize how we treat and think about health care. And I suspect that many of you are saying, well, $199 is still quite expensive and people in my country can't afford it. And that is true today in 2014, but of course next year it's going to be cut in half, so it's $99. The year after that, $49. These technologies are just going to get better, faster, and more affordable. And soon, in the very not too distant future, many of the people in your regions around the world are in fact going to have access to tools like this. So how is that going to transform your business? These are the challenges, these are the things that you need to be thinking about, not in a couple of years, but today. Trend number 4, nanotechnology. I've written a few books on this topic, and I'm not going to get into the technical details. How many of you saw the recent news about Samsung's new phone that uses a new nano material? Have any of you seen that? Here's what this phone can already do. It has a self-repairing material in it.
In their video, they scratch the phone up and down on the back next to a regular backing. Then after 2 minutes of sitting, the G-Flex actually completely heals, almost, while the regular phone is, of course, still scratched. Now,
So that's a pretty impressive technology. But nano-enhanced products today are a $5 billion a year global industry. By the end of the decade, close to $100 billion a year global industry. But of course, that was just one application of nanotechnology. There are going to be numerous applications, and let me just provide one in the healthcare industry. There's a new company that has developed a new nanoparticle with diagnostic technology that can take a single drop of blood and rapidly detect the presence of over 1,000 different diseases. How much does this technology cost? Thousands of dollars? No. Tens of dollars. What does it mean when you can begin testing for thousands of different diseases almost instantaneously? These technologies are coming sooner rather than later. Trend number 5 that is doubling. Only this one, we're going to go from thousands to millions. Because again, remember, if something doubles 10 times, it's 1,000 times bigger. So today, there are thousands of robots in the manufacturing sector, in the agriculture sector, in the healthcare sector, in the defense sector, but that number is doubling. In the West, just last month, Amazon announced plans to begin hopefully delivering items with flying robotic technology in 5 years. But here's where we already are today. How many of you saw the news from just 2 days ago, what they're doing in Dubai? Did any of you see this? Dubai now intends to use flying drone technology to deliver government documents within the next year. But I want you to start thinking about how a technology like that, relate it back to the earlier blood sample test. What if you're in the Philippines and there are people on the islands who you can't reach and who you've never been able to reach, but suddenly new technology like this allows you to begin reaching out to them in new ways and getting their blood samples, getting them back, doing tests, and finding out what type of insurance they might need. It might sound implausible from today's perspective, but these technologies are getting better, faster, and more affordable. So what sounds outlandish today could be quite practical in the not too distant future. And to show you how fast this robotic future is coming, how many of you know what this technology is? Any of you? It is a self-driven robotic car, and it's now legal in 3 states in the United States. And why is that? It's because on over 1 million miles of California freeways, that technology has not yet gotten in an accident. But think about this. Today, 40,000 people lose their lives in car accidents. The overwhelming majority of those accidents are caused by human error. But if self-driven robotic technology eliminates that, is that going to have effect on your industry? Absolutely. And again, you need to be thinking about these changes not in a couple of years, because Nissan and a host of other companies have said self-driven cars are going to be here by 2020. The next technology, 1,000-fold increase, only this time we're going to go from millions to billions. And this is sensor technology, computer chip technology. Could I just see a show of hands? How many of you already know what a Nike Fuel Band or Fitbit is? So some of you are already wearing this technology. It's sensor technology, and it tracks your physical activity. It encourages you to be healthier. It also monitors your sleep. So in many ways, it's already improving people's health. That's where we are today. But these sensors are going to become more and more prevalent. And the term you are going to start hearing is this, the Internet of Things. By 2020, we are going to connect 50 billion physical objects to the Internet. And they have said this is a $15 trillion business opportunity. I want to repeat that, a $15 trillion business opportunity that we know is coming in the next 6 years. Let me just show you a brief commercial that a company has recently begun airing, trying to educate the public as to what the Internet of Things means.
Trees will talk to networks. We'll talk to scientists about climate change. Cars will talk to road sensors. We'll talk to stoplights about traffic efficiency. The ambulance will talk to patient records. We'll talk to doctors about saving lives. It's going to be amazing and exciting, and maybe, most remarkably, not that far away.
Not that far away. I want to tell you that the sensors on those bands are soon going to be, they're already talking to us, but soon they're going to be talking to life insurance companies. And of course, those other sensors are going to be inside our body, telling us what's going on inside there. And they're going to be communicating to doctors and to insurance companies about how to stay healthy. This future is not that far away. Let me give you the seventh technology, 1,000-fold increase, gene sequencing technology. I want to tell you a story. 7 years ago, this individual, his name is Craig Venter, he wanted to sequence his genome. Well, that cost him $150 million. Not very practical, but gene sequencing technology getting better every 4 months, which means the price is being cut in half every 4 months. And if you cut $150 million in half, starting in 2007, something truly remarkable happens. By the end of 2012, the price had already been cut to $10,000. By December of last year, it had dropped to $1,000. But get ready for this. By the end of the decade, it is going to cost you and your customers pennies to sequence their genes. What cost $150 million just 7 years ago is going to be pennies. And this is going to have a profound implication on how we think about our health and on the insurance industry. And let me give you an example from the West. Some of you might recognize her. She's a movie star in the West called Angelina Jolie. And last year she announced she was going to have a double mastectomy. And why did she make that decision? She made that decision because she sequenced her genes. And it told her she had an 87% chance of getting breast cancer. And she had lost her mother due to breast cancer, and she said, I am not taking that chance. That story provides us a glimpse of what we will all be able to do within the next couple of years. Some of you may have seen this story just a few months ago. The idea that as we know more about our health, life expectancies could radically increase, potentially to 120. That might sound outside the realm of possibility today, but from my perspective as a futurist, it is not. And we and you as leaders have to begin preparing your clients and others for this world that could be here sooner than most people expect. Trend number 8 is doubling computer processing power. I mention this one because a lot of us like to think because we have smartphones and laptops and tablets that we have lived through the computer revolution. No, we are but a fraction of the way through the computer revolution. Here's how I want you to think of this. A few years ago, IBM had a supercomputer that went on a game show in the US, and it took on the all-time champion and crushed the person in the game. And you think, well, that's just a game. Well, it was 3 years ago, but here's what I want you to know, is that 3 years ago, that computer was capable of 70 trillion calculations per second. That does not mean much to most people, but here's how I want you to think about 70 trillion calculations. If you had to do 70 trillion calculations, but you only had, say, a calculator, and that's all I had when I was in university 25 years ago, it would have taken me 60 million years to do what that machine does in 1 second. That's a little humbling. And that's the computer that went on to the game show. Today, the supercomputer is already 1,000 times more powerful. And here's what it is already doing.
Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and IBM are at the forefront in building new technology that will use IBM Watson and complex analytics to better treat cancer patients. With medical information doubling every 5 years, finding new ways to make evidence-based decisions has never been more critical.
The ability for computers to help your clients and customers better understand what decisions they might need to be making is going to be here sooner than most people appreciate. But there's another way I want you to think about this revolution. Do any of you have on you the iPhone 4S? Any of you? So some of you do, and that came out just 18 months ago. But when it came out 18 months ago, the latest advance on it was what? Siri, artificial intelligence. You can now ask your phone a question and it gives you an answer. That's pretty impressive, and I think we can all recognize that yesteryear's supercomputer is now packed into this device. It's a little more challenging to understand that today's supercomputers are going to be packed into your smart device of the near future. So what might this mean? Here's what it means. It means we're going to go from a world where we ask our phones questions and get answers to a world where our devices know us and our health so well that they tell us things that we need to know before we even ask the question. And if you don't believe that, watch this.
What could this tell me about impending trouble?
Well, we're working on a project that will take a nanosensor in the bloodstream that is smaller than a grain of sand, and it will pick up a signal when you have cells that are coming off, shed into the bloodstream, coming off from the artery lining, which is the precursor to a heart attack. And then you will get on your phone a special heart attack ringtone.
A special heart attack ringtone to alert you or your customers that they are about to have a heart attack before they ever have that heart attack. That sounds a little implausible. But the fellow who is developing that technology, his understanding of advances in nanotechnology, computer processing power, and sensor technology tell him that that vision isn't off in the far, far future. It's just a few years away. This is the future we all need to be preparing for and thinking about. Trend number 9, that is doubling the amount of data we are collecting on ourselves through our Fitbits and through all of these sensors is doubling. And this number is skyrocketing. And the era of big data, business intelligence, business analytics, call it whatever you want, we are just in the early stages of a revolution. And we're going to start learning so much more about ourselves and our health, and this is going to have profound implications on the insurance industry. In fact, it's so profound that there are already a handful of companies, Citibank, ANZ in Australia, who are already collecting so much data that you know what they can do? They are honing in on figuring out how to get their customers and potentially your customers the best life insurance policy based on everything that they know about them. So the question then becomes, how much do you really know about your customers? And the answer is not nearly enough. And in the coming years, you have to begin figuring out how to harness all of this data to help your clients and customers make the best informed decision about what they and their family need. The last trend I want to tell you about is something called the sharing economy, or collaborative consumption. Today we have access to so much information, and we can access that information through our smartphones, that many people now are, instead of buying automobiles, they're simply renting an automobile when they need it. Uber, Zipcar, a whole host of other car services. So my message to you is, think about this. Many people aspire to owning a car, or at least they did in the past. More and more young people are going to say, you know what? I don't need to own a car. All I need is to have a car those few times a month that I need it. And it's going to save them inordinate amounts of money. The reason this is important to you is suddenly if they're saving money by not purchasing an automobile, that leaves them with extra income to potentially do what? To buy more insurance or to invest in their future. Many of these technologies are going to open up ways for you to think about serving your customers in new and better ways. As I said, this future is barreling down upon us. So the question then becomes, how do we prepare for this future? And this is the theme that I'm going to talk in my next session at the members only session. But let me just give you one way to help you think about this future. And it is, I encourage all of you to get what I call a reverse mentor. What is a reverse mentor? A reverse mentor is someone who is younger than us, who has less experience than we do. And why do we need that? You still need older, more experienced mentors. I'm not saying to give that up. But in a world that is changing as fast as it is, and it is changing at warp speed, we need to change our thinking. And we need people who can help change our thinking. And many times those individuals are people who are younger than us. So if you don't have a reverse mentor, I cannot encourage you strongly enough to get one sooner rather than later. Now, let me just wrap up. One other way I want you to think about the future. If I were to ask you, if you could fold a piece of paper 50 times, it's impossible to do, but if you could, each time fold it in half, it would get twice as thick, and it'd get twice as small, but it would get twice as thick. If I were to ask you, after 50 folds, how high would that piece of paper get? The answer is likely to astound you. The answer, and this is a mathematical fact, is 100 million kilometers. Doesn't that sound impossible? But it is not. And I'm going to walk you quickly through this. Remember, if something doubles just 10 times, it's 1,000 times thicker. So that's what the piece of paper would be after 10. If you could fold that piece of paper another 10 times to 20, it would be at the 25th story of the towers next door. If you could double those towers another 10 times, you'd be 100 kilometers in space at the curvature of Earth. Another 10 times after that, you're to the moon. The final 10 times take you almost to the sun. Why do I tell you this? Is every technology I told you about going to double 50 times? No, not every one of them, but 5 are. Computer processing power, data storage, the sequencing of human genomes, sensor technology, and data technology are going to double 50 times in our lifetime. And they are going to take us to places that sound impossible today, but are going to be eminently possible tomorrow. And that brings me to my final message. I understand that this fast-changing future can frighten a lot of people, but there is absolutely no reason to be frightened. And here's why. It has been said that the best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. And as I said, each and every one of these trends, technologies, and tools is here today. But the future for yourself and your customers is only going to be created by you. And so those of you who have the courage to create the future are going to have a continued successful future. So go out and create your future today. Thank you very much.